At 3:45 a.m. on October 1st, 2024, while darkness still blanketed the city of Mississauga in Ontario, Canada, the Peel Regional Police unexpectedly received an emergency call. The caller reported that a serious break-in attack had just occurred at a mansion located at 3480 Joan Drive. Thanks to the favorable geographic location, the crime scene was only about 1.2 miles from the police station. The dispatched officers were able to deploy and arrive at the scene in a very short time. However, when the first police officers stepped inside the house, the scene before them was far more serious and alarming than they had initially imagined. Inside the home, 3 men lay motionless on the ground in injured condition, blood scattered everywhere. Notably, one of them had been shot multiple times in vital areas of his body, his condition extremely critical. Recognizing the urgent nature of the situation, emergency medical responders were immediately mobilized to transport all 3 victims by ambulance to the nearest hospital. Despite every effort by the medical team to save him, the most severely wounded man ultimately could not survive, drawing his last breath on the hospital bed due to his catastrophic injuries. After conducting identity verification procedures according to protocol, police officially confirmed that the victim who died in the attack was Zhao Wei Ruo, a 55-year-old man originally from Fujian Province, China. Many years earlier, he had decided to leave his homeland to immigrate to Canada, hoping to find a new life and better opportunities for development. After settling in this new land, Wei Ruo began building his business career in Ontario and gradually rose to become a major shareholder of the Longxiang supermarket chain, a supermarket system serving the local Chinese community. Thanks to his considerable business scale and long-standing presence in the retail industry, the name Zhao Wei Ruo had become quite familiar and held a certain reputation within the Chinese community living in the area. As for the 2 remaining victims who fortunately survived the attack, police confirmed they were both relatives of Wei Ruo. All 3 had been living together under the same roof at the very mansion where this bloody tragedy occurred. During the process of taking statements, the 2 survivors tried to recount what they could remember about that horrifying night. According to their account, at the time of the incident, at least 3 armed suspects suddenly and violently broke through the door into the house. After a brief struggle and confrontation with the people inside, the group did not hesitate to open fire, seriously wounding all 3 victims before quickly fleeing the scene on foot and disappearing into the night. Unfortunately, throughout the entire crime, all the suspects had carefully covered their faces, making it completely impossible for the 2 surviving witnesses to identify any physical features or clues that could help determine the identity of the perpetrators. Immediately after completing first aid and transporting the victims to the hospital, police quickly sealed off the entire area surrounding the mansion to conduct thorough and meticulous crime scene investigation. In their initial preliminary assessments, investigators tended to classify this case as a typical armed robbery, a type of crime not uncommon in residential areas where many affluent families live. However, as they delved deeper into the evidence collection and scene analysis process, police began to notice several unusual details that didn't fit the initial theory. Although the windows and doors all bore clear signs of being pried open and forcibly entered, strangely, all the valuable property inside the house remained intact in its original positions, with not a single item taken or disturbed. This notable detail forced investigators to pause, reconsider, and completely reassess the true nature of the incident. From the clues gathered, they arrived at a troubling conclusion. The attack that night was very likely not a random or coincidental property robbery, but rather a carefully calculated act of violence with a clear purpose, aimed directly at the homeowner. In other words, Wei Ruo, the man who died in the attack, was very possibly the actual target that the criminal group had identified before striking. With determination to track down the perpetrators, in the following days, the investigation team conducted a large-scale sweep, extracting and carefully reviewing an enormous volume of surveillance footage collected from security camera systems in neighboring areas around the crime scene. After many hours of painstakingly analyzing each frame, investigators finally noted an important discovery. In some video footage capturing movement on nearby roads, they had captured images of the vehicle the suspects used to flee the scene after committing the crime: a white van. Recognizing this as a crucial clue that could lead to identifying the perpetrators, police immediately released the captured images of this vehicle widely across media outlets and social networks while calling for assistance from the community. They hoped that with the spread of information, some citizens might recognize the vehicle or have witnessed something related, thereby providing valuable additional clues for the investigation. However, the true motive behind the bloody attack remained a major unanswered question, and investigators continued to dig deeper. Immediately after news of Wei Ruo's murder was broadcast and spread widely by the media, a powerful wave of shock quickly swept through the Chinese community living in Mississauga and surrounding areas. This tragic event became a hot topic of discussion in every corner of the community. The reason the case attracted such special attention was not only because Wei Ruo, as a major shareholder of the famous Longxiang supermarket chain, already had a certain influence and standing in the local Chinese community. There was another reason why this case was dissected and discussed so extensively: the mysterious story of his wife, the woman who had vanished without a trace 13 years earlier. This bizarre disappearance had caused quite a stir at the time, attracting attention from both the media and the public, with countless theories and speculation being proposed. However, as the years passed without any new clues or breakthroughs in the investigation, public interest gradually cooled, and related discussions slowly subsided and faded into obscurity. But now, with Wei Ruo suddenly and brutally murdered in his own home, memories of the disappearance from years past were suddenly awakened. Many people began placing the two incidents side by side, attempting to find hidden connections between them, giving rise to all kinds of speculation, theories, and waves of buzzing public opinion. Many community residents believed that having both husband and wife from the same family successively encounter tragic misfortunes over a span of many years was truly difficult to consider random or mere coincidence. This made people wonder and question whether behind these tragedies there might still be deep-seated conflicts that had never been brought to light, or perhaps dark secrets that to this day no one knows about. Wei Ruo's wife was named Fong Ling, who disappeared at age 40. Like her husband, she also came from Fujian Province, China. Before meeting and marrying Wei Ruo, Fong Ling had already gone through a previous marriage. From that first marriage, she had a son, and at the time she decided to immigrate to Canada, the boy was already 14 years old. In 2003, Fong Ling and her son immigrated from China to Canada, choosing Mississauga as their place of settlement to begin a new chapter in this unfamiliar land. Not long after arriving in the new land and beginning to adapt to life there, Fong Ling had the opportunity to meet Wei Ruo, a fellow countryman also from Fujian, who was at the time running a fairly successful business locally. Perhaps thanks to the closeness of culture, language, and homeland roots, combined with the similar circumstances of those living far from home in a foreign land, the relationship between the two developed quickly. Finally, after a period of getting to know each other and growing close, they decided to officially unite, holding their wedding ceremony and becoming husband and wife in 2005. However, after marriage, due to reasons related to work and business ventures, Wei Ruo and Fong Ling had to accept living apart for an extended period. While Fong Ling and her son from her previous marriage lived in a high-end apartment in the city of Vaughan, Wei Ruo lived alone in Mississauga to facilitate managing and operating his business. This peculiar state of separation, despite both still being legally married in name, continued uninterrupted for 5 full years. As for Fong Ling, she did not pursue any stable job. Instead, she found her passion and also her livelihood at casinos, where she gradually became a quite prominent and well-known blackjack and baccarat player in gambling circles. Her footprint covered casinos large and small, stretching from Ontario all the way to Quebec, and she particularly loved the excitement and tension of placing large bets in VIP rooms reserved for elite customers. With her generous playing style, unafraid to bet big money, and her frequent appearances at high-stakes tables, the name Fong Ling quickly became familiar and famous in casino circles. Those who had the chance to meet or interact with her all shared a common observation that Fong Ling's life was extremely luxurious and elegant, befitting a high-society lady. She almost always appeared in outfits from prestigious fashion brands, adorned with sparkling high-end jewelry and frequently visited upscale fashion stores and famous boutiques for the wealthy. Many people wondered about the abundant financial source that allowed Fong Ling to maintain such a lavish lifestyle and place such large bets without working. The answer lay in an unfortunate yet paradoxical event from many years before. She had been the victim of a car accident, and after litigation, she had received an enormous compensation settlement. This money became a solid financial foundation, opening up an entirely new life for her. Rather than using that money to invest in safe channels or build a stable business, Fong Ling chose a riskier path. She began actively operating in high-stakes areas of casinos, lending money to gamblers who needed quick cash in amounts of $500 or more, then profiting from the interest. Her private lending operation grew increasingly in scale, the number of borrowing customers becoming ever more numerous, and gradually the income from interest became the primary, almost sole financial source that Fong Ling relied on to maintain her luxurious and extravagant lifestyle. But everything was abruptly interrupted in a puzzling way on a fateful day. That day, Fong Ling drove her car out of the house, but then she disappeared in a strange and mysterious manner. No one knew where she had gone, what had happened to her, or what her fate was. She left no messages, calls, or clues that could help her family and police trace her whereabouts. Time returns to April 21st, 2011. That afternoon, Fong Ling drove her luxurious Porsche away from her apartment as usual. According to plans arranged in advance, she had a dinner appointment with a group of close friends that evening. However, as the clock hands approached the agreed meeting time, the friends waiting at the restaurant began to feel strange when they didn't see Fong Ling's familiar figure appear. They took out their phones to call her, but the other end just rang endlessly with no one picking up. At first, the group of friends wasn't too worried, simply thinking that perhaps Fong Ling had encountered some unexpected matter causing a delay, or was busy with something important and couldn't arrive on time. But as time continued to pass without any response or news from her, the atmosphere among the friends shifted from curiosity to anxiety, then gradually became truly alarming. Finally, after countless attempts to make contact without any results, the group of friends decided to report Fong Ling's suspicious disappearance to the police. Immediately after receiving the report from Fong Ling's worried friends, police promptly placed this suspicious disappearance on the list of cases requiring urgent investigation. Recognizing the importance of the time factor in cases like this, authorities quickly proceeded to widely publish Fong Ling's personal information and detailed identifying physical characteristics to the public through media outlets and police information channels. They hoped that with the spread of information, some citizens in the community might recognize or have seen this woman, thereby providing valuable clues to support the search and investigation efforts. In the early stages of the investigation, a glimmer of hope appeared when a witness proactively contacted police to provide information deemed quite important. According to this person's statement, at around 4:30 p.m. on April 21st, the very day Fong Ling disappeared, they had personally seen her in the area near Langstaff, specifically in the vicinity of the intersection between Vaughan Boulevard and 16th Avenue in the city of Vaughan. The witness described that at that time, Fong Ling was still dressed neatly and tidily, wearing an outfit in black tones. Notably, according to the witness's observation, she showed no unusual expressions or behavior whatsoever. Everything seemed completely normal, like someone in the midst of a routine commute. This testimony became the final confirmed time that Fong Ling was seen by another person. From that moment on, she suddenly vanished mysteriously. Both she and her Porsche left no trace or sign of their whereabouts. 2 days after Fong Ling was last seen, on April 23, 2011, police found her purple Porsche Cayenne. The vehicle was discovered parked in the outdoor parking lot of a shopping center located at the intersection of Highway 7 East and Velour Woods Boulevard. This location was very close to Fong Ling's residence, only about a 5-minute drive from her upscale apartment in Vaughan. When examining the vehicle, police noticed it had been parked neatly and carefully in a parking space, with all doors locked securely from the outside. More notably, the interior of the car was completely empty, with no personal belongings or items left behind, and there were no signs indicating the car had been in a collision or broken into. In the process of investigating further about where the car was found, police learned that this shopping center's parking lot was a familiar pickup point where tourist buses frequently stopped to pick up passengers wanting to visit famous casinos like Niagara Casino or Rama Casino. With this information, a reasonable theory was proposed. Perhaps Fong Ling had parked her car there and then boarded a bus to one of the casinos she regularly frequented. To verify this theory, investigators conducted a thorough sweep, interviewing and taking statements from all bus drivers who operated routes to the casinos during that time period. Simultaneously, they also contacted management at multiple casinos in the area directly to request extraction of all relevant surveillance footage. However, all the evidence showed that on the day Fong Ling disappeared, she had not boarded any bus heading to the casinos, and there were no images recording her presence at any casino whatsoever. After completely ruling out the possibility that Fong Ling had gone to the casinos on her own that day, investigators began considering another theory. Could this woman have voluntarily abandoned her current life, deliberately disappearing to start a new life somewhere else? However, this theory was quickly dismissed. During the search of Fong Ling's upscale apartment, police discovered a very large sum of cash still intact inside her safe. Fong Ling's acquaintances and friends all pointed out, if she truly intended to leave and start a new life somewhere, there was no reason for her to leave behind such an enormous amount of cash without taking it. This detail clearly showed that she had no plans or preparations for leaving home beforehand. Additionally, Fong Ling's close friends affirmed consistently and with certainty that in her daily life, she was someone who always proactively informed family and friends about her schedule and travel plans. She rarely, almost never, lost contact without reason or suddenly disappeared without telling anyone. More importantly, what made the voluntary departure theory even more absurd was that Fong Ling's schedule on the day she disappeared was packed and full. Besides the dinner appointment with friends that she never showed up for, she had also made advance appointments for facial treatments and hair care at her regular beauty establishments. She was even in the process of planning and preparing for a trip to Australia, scheduled to take place not long after. All these signs, when pieced together, pointed to the same undeniable truth. Fong Ling had absolutely no reason or motive to suddenly leave like that. On June 15th, 2011, when nearly 2 months had passed since the day Fong Ling mysteriously vanished without any significant breakthrough in the investigation, an important decision was made within law enforcement. The Homicide Investigation Unit of the York Regional Police officially took over the entire case file of Fong Ling's disappearance from the Peel Regional Police. This transfer marked a turning point in the investigation, while also implicitly indicating that authorities were increasingly leaning toward the possibility that this was no longer simply an ordinary missing person case. On the day of the case handover, Wei Ruo, Fong Ling's husband, personally appeared at police headquarters to coordinate with authorities in holding a public press conference. The purpose of this press conference was to leverage the spreading power of mass media, hoping that information about the case would be disseminated even more widely to the public, thereby potentially gathering valuable new clues for the stalled investigation. Standing before the cameras of numerous press and television agencies, with the assistance of an interpreter, Wei Ruo publicly appealed to the entire public that if anyone possessed any information or clues related to his wife, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, please immediately contact the police to provide information. In responding to questions from the press at the press conference, Wei Ruo shared additional information about their marital relationship and married life. He mentioned that due to the nature of his business work and the particular demands of their lives, he and Fong Ling had to accept living apart for an extended period. With both of their busy schedules, they typically could only meet about once a week. When asked about his last contact with his wife, Wei Ruo said he had spoken with Fong Ling about a week before the day she disappeared. According to his account, during that conversation, everything proceeded completely normally as usual. She showed no signs indicating she was under pressure or worried about anything, nor were there any suspicious unusual behaviors or words. When reporters asked about Fong Ling's longtime habit of frequenting casinos and her money-lending activities in gambling circles, Wei Ruo honestly admitted that he had repeatedly warned his wife about the potential risks that could arise from such a lifestyle and work. However, He also expressed confidence in his wife's character, describing that in his eyes, Fong Ling was a woman with an extremely outgoing, open, and approachable personality, with a kind, straightforward, and sincere nature in all relationships. He affirmed that the way she treated everyone around her was always warm and friendly. Also, at that press conference, representatives of the police force revealed many important details from the investigation they had conducted over nearly 2 months. Accordingly, investigators had carried out an extremely thorough and meticulous search of the upscale apartment where Fong Ling lived in Vaughan. The search results showed that the entire interior space of the apartment was still maintained as neat and tidy as it had been, with no signs indicating any fighting or scuffling had occurred, no traces of forced entry from outside, and no indication that the apartment's owner had hastily packed up belongings to leave in an emergency. However, notably, the personal items that Fong Ling always carried with her whenever she left home, including her wallet, bank cards, credit cards, and other essential everyday items, had all disappeared and could not be found anywhere in the apartment. Most importantly, throughout the nearly 2-month period from the day Fong Ling disappeared until the time of the press conference, all bank accounts in her name had recorded no withdrawal or spending transactions whatsoever, no matter how small. Her mobile phone had also fallen into a state of complete silence, showing no signs of being turned on, off, or used to make any calls or send any messages. When checking immigration and emigration records at all of Canada's border crossings, results also confirmed that Fong Ling had not left the country since the day she vanished. For investigators, combining all this information together could only lead to one troubling conclusion. Fong Ling was not a case of natural disappearance or voluntary departure. She had very likely become the victim of a serious criminal case. Because of these assessments, police officially upgraded the case from an ordinary missing person case to a homicide investigation with a higher level of priority and resources. News of Fong Ling's mysterious disappearance and the case being upgraded to a homicide investigation quickly crossed the ocean to reach her family living in China. Upon hearing the news, the entire family fell into a state of extreme worry and confusion. Fong Ling's elderly parents, though very worried, were unable to make the trip immediately due to their advanced age, weak health, and the great difficulty of long-distance travel. Instead, Fong Ling's brother immediately booked a plane ticket and flew to Canada as soon as possible. As soon as he arrived, he personally went to meet and maintain close contact with the police force to stay updated on the investigation progress and all the latest information about the case. However, despite all the tireless efforts from both family and police, time quietly passed day by day, month by month, while the investigation still made no significant progress. No new clues emerged, no witnesses came forward with useful information, and Fong Ling remained completely without word. In the following months, police continued their deep investigation, interviewing Fong Ling's friends and acquaintances. Even the gamblers she had lent money to were invited in for questioning. However, all those interviewed showed no connection to her disappearance, nor did anyone mention that she had ever had any clear conflict with anyone. Due to the lack of specific clues, the investigation gradually reached a dead end. Fong Ling's strange disappearance had once attracted widespread attention locally, with the media reporting on it many times, but over time, news became increasingly scarce. Police also announced no breakthrough progress, and the case gradually drifted out of public view. Only a small number of people interested in unsolved cases continued to discuss the possibilities behind Fong Ling's disappearance on blogs and forums. It wasn't until 13 years later, when her husband Wei Ruo met his tragic fate, that the name Fong Ling was once again mentioned. Although the two incidents were separated by a long time span and differed in nature, they still prompted many netizens to begin re-examining what had happened to this couple, discussing animatedly online, trying to connect the two cases, speculating whether there might be hidden circumstances yet to be revealed. On online forums and community blogs, many netizens interested in unsolved cases spent time analyzing and enthusiastically discussing Fong Ling's mysterious disappearance, thereby raising several suspicious points and notable issues that made many people think. First, a detail that puzzled many people related to Wei Ruo's explanation about why the couple lived separately. He had stated that due to work requirements, they had to live apart in two different places for many years. However, when verifying geographic information, people discovered that Wei Ruo's residence in Mississauga was actually only about a 35-minute drive from Fong Ling's apartment in Vaughan. Such a short distance hardly seemed convincing enough to serve as a legitimate reason for a married couple to maintain a state of separation lasting 5 full years. Another suspicious point raised by the online community concerned the fate of Fong Ling's 14-year-old son after she disappeared. According to known information, after the boy's mother vanished, Wei Ruo did not step up to take responsibility for caring for and raising the child. Instead, the son was handed over to another guardian for care. What made many people wonder and question even more was that regarding the boy's subsequent life and situation, there was absolutely no public information or reports released. Combining these unusual situations and details together, some netizens began to develop suspicions and question whether Wei Ruo might have some connection to the mysterious disappearance of his own wife. Besides the suspicions directed at Wei Ruo, other information was revealed online that made the case even more complex. A netizen claiming to be an acquaintance of Fong Ling posted sharing that although outwardly Fong Ling's life appeared extremely luxurious and prosperous with designer outfits, expensive jewelry, and an upper-class lifestyle, in reality, behind that glamorous facade, she was carrying a considerable amount of accumulated debt. If this information is accurate, it could open an entirely new investigative direction regarding the motive and cause leading to the disappearance. Since the person or group who murdered Wei Ruo in the 2024 attack has still not been arrested and brought to justice, combined with the fact that Fong Ling's whereabouts after more than a decade remain a complete unknown without any leads, numerous theories and speculations have emerged in the online community. Some believe that both husband and wife may have inadvertently or deliberately become entangled in conflicts or disputes with organized criminal gangs, and what happened to them was the consequence of that. Others speculate that given Fong Ling's money-lending activities in gambling circles, she may have encountered disaster during an attempt to collect debts from gamblers who were unable or unwilling to pay. However, all these explanations and speculations up to this point remain purely speculative, with no concrete or substantive evidence to support or prove any of them. Amid countless accumulated mysteries, circulating rumors, and contradictory theories surrounding the case, perhaps the only thing we can determine with certainty at this moment is what actually happened to Fong Ling on that fateful day in 2011 and what led to Wei Ruo's tragic death in 2024 still have no satisfactory answers. The two incidents are like two pieces of a mysterious puzzle that no one has yet been able to complete. As for what this couple actually went through during all those years, what they became involved in, and who bears responsibility for the tragedies that befell them, all those questions will likely need to wait much longer until more truths and new evidence are brought to light before the final answers can be found. So, what do you think about today's case? Please share in the comments section below. Thank you for watching and see you in the next videos.